Test.
All right, okay, and we're on. Good evening. At this point, I would like to call to order the meeting of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee at 7:01 p.m. on Thursday, March 16th, 2023. And we'll begin by inviting you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on HWCAM. First up, we have an opportunity for citizens' comments, both on Zoom and live here in the room. It doesn't look like there's anyone on Zoom. Is that accurate, Eric?
Nobody is on Zoom.
All right, and so I might just, before reading all of this, I suspect there are no citizens' comments in the room, but if there are, please approach the podium. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to move right on, and we can go ahead and close the Zoom at 7:02. Thank you. Right. Next up, we're moving so quickly. Next on the agenda is I would like to take a moment to recognize Anna Siedzik for her years of service. And if you guys will indulge me, I'd like to just say a couple of words. I actually wrote something down, but I'm going to just speak from my heart. So Anna and I joined during what can only be described as a bonkers time in the world. We both joined the that committee in June 2020. We should have joined in April, but the world wasn't ready to do that. I guess I just want to say, Anna, I think we all appreciate your passion, your tenacity. When you're in a meeting with Anna, you know that no complex motion is going to go by without a couple of questions, a few concerns, and maybe a comment or two. And I want to take a real step to recognize specifically, and I know that those of you on the committee will know the work that Anna's done on policy. It's a perfect match for your skills. Anna's been the chair of policy for the whole time, I believe, since the moment she landed here. And your willingness to dive in, hunt down minutia, be really thoughtful about wordsmithing is really critical in the long run. It's going to serve this committee, but more important, or equally as important, it's going to serve committees for a long time to have that policy meeting Mass General Law, up to date, really thoughtful, organized, and searchable. We're getting there. Anyway, thank you for your service. It's been a wild ride, and I'm really appreciative. Oh, I also just wanted to say, see, I should have looked at what I wrote down. I wanted to say, I don't know how I'll do this without someone whispering Robert's rules in my ear or telling me to remember today it was recorded. Oh, this was one of the few meetings I've actually remembered to say the meeting's being recorded without Anna kicking me under the table. So anyway, so thank you so much for your service. Appreciate it. And
oh boy, can I offer other remarks? Can I respond?
We would.
Thank you.
Small token within the limits of the laws.
Is it less than $50?
Yes. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana, Superintendent, everyone. I thank you for those very kind words, and I guess for posterity, I just want to say thank you to my colleagues here on the committee level, especially to Vinny and to Eric and other district staff, Jen Caulfield, all the leadership team, and to the general public who may or may not ever see this again. I think the best part about being on the school committee is you really learn to appreciate how much more goes into the district and how much more goes into the committee. And I think it's really easy to look on the outside and think, gosh, I could do that. That doesn't seem that hard. And I've grown so much as a person because of this experience, and I have so much, I had a lot of respect for the district, but I have more respect because I understand exactly how hard it is. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve, and it has been a pleasure. Dana is right, we joined and it's been bonkers the whole time. And I don't think any of us could have predicted all of the twists and turns it took. So thank you so much to everyone here at the table with me, watching on Zoom, and especially our district staff and teachers and leadership team who do everything you can to make our children the best possible humans they could be. And as a parent, I really appreciate it, and it's been an honor to serve. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And now we're still going to make Anna work for one more meeting here. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. I have one item to hold, which is the minutes from March 2nd. Does anyone else have any items to hold?
January 19th.
Okay, so March 2nd and January 19th, the minutes from both of those dates. Anything else? Okay, Amy, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, I move that the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee accept the consent agenda with the exception of January 19th and March 2nd minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Anna Siedzik. All those in favor? That is unanimous of the 5 members present. Okay. Sorry, just making notes. Okay, so I am the one that held March 2nd. If you guys are willing, I actually printed it out, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to tell you what page it's on, but it's under, it is under 8D, procedures, dates of the superintendent's evaluation. And really, I would like you all to look at it because this was a really good conversation that we all had, that we were all working together to make sure that we had a consensus about the, what we wanted to do for the evaluation. And a small part of this is not what I thought that we had agreed on, so I want to get feedback from all of you so that we can either correct the minutes or correct my understanding.
Okay.
So if you look down to, I think, the 3rd bullet point there, the end of that paragraph says, new members will submit an evaluation of the superintendent for his work from election day forward.
Oh, yeah.
My understanding was that new members would not submit an evaluation because new members
I agree, yeah.
would not be joining us until after the election
Yeah.
at the end of April.
Yep.
But I just want to that was a long, kind of complicated conversation, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting a good understanding.
I agree with you.
When you guys joined the committee, though, or I guess I might be remembering because Julia joined at a different time.
This is,
I
yes.
joined in like November
November,
or December.
right.
So you opined about the time you were on.
Right.
Yep,
This,
only the time that I had been officially
correct.
on.
Well, but and your point is exactly right, because I know that is exactly where this came from. It was in this discussion. Julia talked about that when she joined the committee, because she didn't join at a typical time right after the election, she was only allowed to write on the portion once she joined the committee. But Julia was in a very different situation in that she joined in November.
Right.
And so she was really, whereas the incoming committee members would be joining, they'll get elected on the 8th, they don't even attend a meeting until the 13th of
Right.
April, and it would be a month later that they would have to,
Yeah.
right.
I think you're
And So, and we have, for people joining at a regular time, that isn't how it's been done. It wasn't how, you guys didn't write.
We didn't write last
Anna
year.
and I, as I just alluded to, actually didn't get elected until after the election, after the evaluations had already been completed, so that didn't happen.
Yeah. Did they even do it though? Because Julie was
I
gone?
don't know what they did. It was, yeah, I don't know. So, anyway, I just want really consensus from the group.
So I think you're right. And so I think that what you're suggesting is we either strike that line or we say new members, newly elected, will not participate in this year's evaluation cycle or something like that, right?
That's what I would suggest, is for it to say newly elected members will not submit an I would say specifically submit an evaluation for the, I guess,
2000
FY '23
Yeah. something like
evaluation.
that.
I wouldn't want to say they can't participate, because I think if a new member at the meeting wanted to speak, I think we would allow a new member to speak about, let's say, ask a question about the evaluation, or
Do they vote?
I believe.
I think they
that-
do
I
vote.
believe that they are allowed to vote or abstain, depending on their,
Right.
so I wouldn't want to say, and and Julia, David, Amy, chime in if you want. Like, I would not want to say that they're not able to participate. I'm just saying they wouldn't be submitting an evaluation.
Right, no, that makes sense. So if we changed it to something like, newly elected members will not submit a written evaluation of the superintendent for the FY '23 year?
Yeah,
Is
I
that-
think that.
But they are allowed to vote on the summary.
They're a member of the committee at the time that it's happening.
So, yeah, we don't want to say like they can't participate.
That's what I'm
We just
saying
want to
is-
make it clear that they can't
They can't write an evaluation.
submit an evaluation.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
that makes sense.
All right. Do we feel like we're clear on that,
Yeah, I have one other question on those minutes.
on the same minutes? Can you talk right into the mic for? 'cause
Yeah,
I'm-
sorry,
thanks.
for some reason I had a different recollection of the amount, and I'd written down a different amount.
Where are you?
In the equipment renovation of the exercise room, it looks like it's a $160,000 project, and for some reason or other, I'd written down 460,000, which may be my error.
Oh, 160.
Yeah,
It is
160.
Okay,
Yep.
good, okay, thank you.
There,
Yeah.
we just saved $300,000.
Yes, just say 300,000, I can go home now.
I applaud you, though, for speaking up, and because, it's always good to double check. We want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, that we're approving the right amount.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
Okay, I do think we do need a motion to amend the minutes.
Okay, I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee amend the minutes from the March 2nd meeting under section 8D, change the sentence, new members will submit an evaluation of the superintendent for his work from election day forward, to newly elected members will not submit a written evaluation of the superintendent for the FY '23 school year.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Julia Campbell. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, and the motion passes of the 5 members present. Bev, do you feel like you've got that? Thank you. Okay, and who held January 19th?
I did.
Okay,
For the most part, my name is spelled correctly in this, but it's not in the beginning. And I feel like it's always important to try to get that right.
Yes,
So I before E, always. It's at the very beginning under present.
I changed one of those too, and
I know, it's
missed another
tricky.
one.
I know. It's, look, I've been on this committee 3 years, and you still can't get my name right.
I would like to say, every single time I've ever written Anna's name, I've had to look it up.
Can you
Every time.
Say again where that is, Anna.
It's on January 19th under present.
Present.
It has my
Oh,
doppelganger.
goodness.
The best part about my last name is Word autocorrects it to sidekick a lot, which I really like, actually.
That's a good one.
It's totally apropos.
Tell you what mine gets.
That is not apropos. You are no one's sidekick.
I was thinking it was everyone's
I was
sidekick.
gonna say.
All right, we'll do.
Okay, right.
We need a motion for that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee correct the minutes from January 19th, in which Anna Seidzik's last name is misspelled.
Second.
second by Julia Campbell. Is there any discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor? And the motion passes unanimously of the 5 members present. Okay.
No discussion except apologies.
Not to worry.
Okay, and thank you very much. I'd like to just say to, it's a team, real team effort, getting a large number of minutes there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of authors on those minutes.
Thank
I
you,
was impressed how
everybody.
consistently they were formatted, all on our own,
Yeah, although, yes.
for the most part.
I have to, yeah, I was going to say, I struggled a little with formatting, I have to say, but I was impressed with some of the other people's ability to format. Yeah, no, I think we got it done. Okay, next up is a draft and discussion of the town meeting budget flyer. I don't know whether that's, I think Eric and
Yep.
Amy are going to speak to that.
This is our, I don't know, 4th draft, maybe. It's gone back and forth far too many times. But we figured we would begin at least the process of getting this settled and complete for a review by the committee. Gone through and triple-checked the numbers with Vinnie, tried to make sure we had everything in alignment. And again, these are flyers that we will request permission to hand out, or actually, we give them out. We leave them on the table at the town meetings, both Hamilton and Wenham. Just kind of an overview of what's going on the front side with the actual budget, what the total budget is, the E&D and how we're using it, and then total revenues, and then the assessment amounts really on the front. And that's generally what we've done in the past years. And then if you go to the second side, kind of a quick rundown of the turf field athletic facilities improvement project with the goals outlined, a rendering of what it should look like in the end, some outlines of what is actually in the project, and then the project costs with some possible offsets. We try to keep it simple, but make it clear, because I think the difficulty is that much of this flyer happens in multiple warrant articles. So you have part of it that will occur in the budget. As you know, the transfer, the stabilization fund is in the budget. The auditorium, smart board, Bucher School, and what's being returned to the town is built into the budget, so that's one vote. Then if you go to the project for fields, there is in each community a CPC vote, the community preservation recommendations. They're simply recommendations to grant the money based on a vote at town meeting, so that vote will occur. And then a third and final vote on the $15 million project overall. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in this presentation, but we thought it was important to get something together and try to get as much information on there as possible while also keeping it as simple as possible. So this is I think our 4th or 5th, Amy. Amy's, in the middle of the night, we're sending emails like, can you do this? Can you change this number? And certainly any suggestions or edits or anything like that, we will take, and we will finalize this with the approval of the committee and have them ready for a town meeting.
So just thank you, and thank you to both of you. So just procedurally, what I envision here and, with your consultation is what I think we want to give feedback to Eric and Amy on potential edits. But we do not have another meeting between now and town meeting. And so ideally, what we want to do is flesh this out, and then I'm proposing that we might want to think about a vote that would allow Amy and Eric to, finalize, tweak. As a point of personal comfort, does anyone else feel like it's 10,000 degrees in here?
It's hot and it's really bright.
Okay.
It's hot and I love it.
Well, there's windows open.
All right, just,
Want me to shut 'em?
no, I'm
It is
not.
very bright.
No, it's fine. No, you don't have to. I could, I think they're open.
You know how those kids like to turn up the heat. I do.
All right, now that everyone's up and running around to figure out about
It
windows.
is brighter
No,
in here,
I'm
though.
with you,
Yes,
Dana.
I don't know whether we changed some light bulbs. I hadn't
I
noticed
feel like
that, but
I'm
it
in a
is brighter. I
supermarket.
can't do anything about
The
it.
light bulbs are changed. They are cooler. They're LED.
No, it's hot.
They're
That's why it's brighter in
They
here.
are bright. Okay.
It does have a market basket.
Thank you.
recent
Thank you,
retrofit.
thank you, David, and thank you, Vinny. I'm grateful for that. I do have a couple of edits or suggestions. I don't know if other people have thoughts on the flyer.
One of the things that just, sorry,
Yep,
I
go
think it's important to know that level services will be coming off there because we did cut a number of positions and a number of things. We cut almost $1 million out of the original ask. So that's really not a true statement, so we'll take that out and just wordsmith that to provide for a continuation of services and programs offered, so. It's just not level services where there's.
Right, it's not, right.
I realized that after I sat down
Yeah.
tonight.
All right, Anna, do you want to start?
I do. I have a couple of things. Some of them small, some of them big. In the first section here, you refer to the intended high school, middle school field project. I'm pretty sure we've tried really hard not to call it the field project. Do we want to make that the facilities project?
Yep.
This is true on both pages. I think that and I think you have room for it. I'm not a designer, Amy, but I think we need to remind people to vote at the town meetings and also at the town election because it's also on the ballot, is it not?
Debt exclusion will be on the ballot.
This.
Yeah, the facilities project.
Yep.
So I think that we need to remind people to vote at town election. And if we can do that on, both places, just for consistency, because I think you have room on the bottom for a
Yeah,
third.
Yep.
And I also think on the backside, you would have room for that. But I think people don't necessarily realize you have to vote and it has to pass at town meeting and at the ballot.
Yep.
So I would do that. On the rest of it on the front side, it seems fine. On the back side, a couple small things. Under possible offsets, I think we should refer to it as the school district stabilization fund, and I would capitalize stabilization and fund to make clear that that's like a specific thing. But school department is not typically how we refer to ourselves, and I think we're not a department, we're a district as opposed to a school department within a town.
And maybe say capital stabilization fund? Because you
Maybe.
could have different stabilization funds.
Yeah, so I would make that clearer. Another really important thing I would like us to add is both under ADA, I would say ADA and Title IX compliance. That's a part of this conversation that I keep trying to bring up to people that keeps getting left out, but I think that that's a huge part of this that we should add back in there, so.
Is that really?
It's still under debate, honestly.
I guess
It's
my-
It was the conversation in the original committee to add, if you look at the map, to add the softball field because of the baseball field being built into the secondary multipurpose field. So the Title IX conversation generated, okay, to get that balance, and we should probably add the softball field, which is where that kind of extra piece came in the past year and a half, 2 years. We have asked for an opinion because we are currently still wrestling with Concom about the approval of softball and tennis courts. There's been 3 meetings, heading to our 4th meeting, and if that gets denied, we're not sure if that creates a Title IX issue, so we're just waiting for an opinion from.
Well, I think my point, though, is that if it were to pass the way it's proposed, it would help us become Title IX
Right.
compliant. And I don't think it's just about softball and tennis. I'm also thinking about the fact that field hockey and lacrosse
Yeah, it's
play
access.
on the septic field by the library. So having larger field spaces would actually help with Title IX issues outside of softball. So I think that's a really, I would, unless you think it's not true, but I don't know that it's not true, even if for some reason softball were to go away, which would be really, I think that would actually create a Title IX issue, seeing where the softball team plays,
Right.
so. But I would like to add it, but unless, it's,
Yeah.
I don't want it to be untrue.
We'll add it and then verify it.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're just waiting for our attorneys to weigh in on it.
Okay.
I was gonna, and this may not be, but I don't actually have strong feelings. I am not really, that's fine to add it, but my reading of this, and maybe I'm not reading it, is that, we've actually identified the current ADA non-compliance, that this is a solution to the Title IX stuff that that Eric is talking about is more like within the project, if we have the, like, we want to make sure that these will be Title IX. It seems like it's a slightly different, I don't know,
One of them is an identified problem, and one of them is a sort of suggested problem, but not.
yeah, like, I guess, it doesn't matter, I just,
I guess my talking point on that would be not doing this project and not having that be a rationale would continue to open the district up to potential Title IX claims, either around the softball field or the girls lacrosse team or the girls field hockey team. I mean, and we all know this, the comparison of where field hockey and lacrosse plays versus where I think boys lacrosse does play at the high school, right? So softball notwithstanding, girls lacrosse plays on the septic field by the library, and the boys lacrosse team plays at the high school. So if I was a girls lacrosse parent, right there, I would have a claim.
Yeah.
Straight up. So to me, I think we should put it there because I do think it is true, and I think for certain voters, that's an important thing. There's a lot of feminist girl sport people in this town, myself being one of them.
you know what, I actually agree with you. When I was initially reading this, I was sort of reading it as, these are the problems that this solves, whereas, but it's not. It really is like, these are the good things that this field is going to bring to us, which I think
Well,
is
what
fine.
if we changed it to, like, this project addresses, this project, instead of consists of?
Or just adding it to that section, like, this project consists of.
I think it consists, I think
I think it does consist, so I think you,
it's fine. I think you can, I don't have I think as long as to Eric's point, you don't want to put on something there that
it's not true.
is not true.
I
I
think
think
we
we
need
need
to
to make sure that that's accurate. Does other people have thoughts about the Title IX thing?
Makes sense to me.
I think that's fine. Did you have other things?
No, I don't.
Other people? I just had a couple things I actually already mentioned. Oh, did you have something?
On the first page, the second paragraph where it's 11.48, it should be 11.68 FTEs.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinnie.
Yep.
So I did mention a couple things already to Eric, but I'll say it here now. On page 2, on the facilities project, the project cost in the bottom corner there, I made a suggestion, it's 4.8 million in, I said potential offsets, maybe rather than, I'm not married to potential, but, up above you actually say possible.
We say possible, should we just repeat it?
Yeah, we could just say possible. I just think rather than available
Right,
suggests
it's not
more
available.
certainty, right,
Right.
than we actually have.
Got it.
And then the only other thing I had is, and this is like a little bit in I don't know the real rules. I know at the town meeting it's important that these are factual and not really like trying to we're not trying to tell people how to vote. And so I was a little bit unsure about, there are a couple places where we use the word "we" and I just, like, it's on the athletic page, it says, "This year, with approval at both town meetings, we hope to move forward." I just didn't know how I felt about that, like, it's like we're speaking, like, rather than having it in more generic, like, the district hopes to move forward, or the district proposes a large-scale renovation.
I feel like because it's under the header of the district, meaning the logo's in the top right corner, that's who it's referring to. It's just kind of more friendly language.
Yeah, no,
I'm not tied to it either way. I think that's how it comes off.
It's funny, I interpreted it more as like the community we, like we as a community, not necessarily just we, the district.
yeah. I don't know that we need to get too bogged down in it. I just,
Would you feel better if it said the district?
What we said, the district is proposing to move forward.
Or just the district hopes? Get rid of
Yeah,
the is
Either one.
for grammar.
hopes to move forward. Yeah.
Okay, so those two instances, are those the only ones?
Yeah,
Well, wouldn't we actually say will? The district will move forward?
Oh, with
With
approval.
approval,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
will,
say
or the
will.
district will move forward?
yeah, actually, yeah.
We get rid of all of the
This year,
verb
with
conjugates
approval, I
there?
found it,
We will.
We will. District will. Nice
I don't
positive
know.
language.
but maybe that's,
Intends.
Well, I feel like
But if they approve it and it's there, I mean,
then we will.
unless,
well, then it has to go to, but it actually has to go to the
With approval at
ballot,
both town
too.
meetings.
right,
It actually has to go to the ballot,
It's
too,
true.
so, um,
So if we
Well,
just put about like with approval from the towns, meaning both through regular voting and town meeting, does that work?
yeah, because this year is implied because we're voting this year.
Okay.
right, because I mean, the person that's reading this is physically sitting at town meeting.
They're
so
already there, yeah.
They know what we're talking about.
Next Thursday.
With approval, right now, at the thing you're sitting at. Like,
Right.
Okay,
Um,
so this year, with approval from the towns, the district will move forward with blah, blah, blah.
I think you could even strike the this year.
And I have to say, I don't, because this is really directed, like, the towns can often mean, like, the select board, and that's not really what we're saying. This is the citizens, like, the voting citizens of the town.
With the town
By the
voters.
WeWorks.
Yeah, no, it may be,
Was
it may be
approval
fine the way it is. I just, it may be fine
Yeah.
the way it is. Maybe I just needed to hash it out a little bit.
It's good
approval
to,
at both town meetings, the town meetings only get approved by the citizens, so it's implicit.
Right, no, exactly. I like town meeting rather than by the towns. I think I like town meeting better.
What if we say with approval at both town meetings and election, we will move forward? And the annual election? What about with approval of the town voters?
that's
we
what I
will
just
move
wrote
forward?
down. With approval from the town voters, the district will move forward with.
I like
Did
that.
you do
What do you-
voters, you did
From
voters all
of.
by yourself
Just wrote it.
before I said it?
Yes.
I mind controlled you then, I did it.
Or of.
Yes.
Well, yeah, do
you
you
say
think
that
it's
again,
from?
Amy?
Yeah, do you
Yes.
think it's from or of?
With approval from the town voters, the district will move forward with.
Approval
Of.
of or from? With, with
it's
the,
of.
I think it's with the approval of, or with approval of.
It's like watching paint dry
I
right
just want
now.
everyone to know this is what it's like to be in a creative presentation.
We'll leave that to you guys to figure that out, I think.
I think you get the gist, though.
Yes.
Thank you all for being willing to dive into that. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a design suggestion, in that left column, if you drop the point size a little bit and bulletize it.
Yeah, so I want to make sure it's legible for everybody that shows up at town meeting.
Yeah, that's the geriatric,
Yeah.
my age
I
group.
didn't say that. Also, it's a really thin column, so it does make it harder to like separate it into pieces,
it's
but
I,
could
I'm,
probably-
I'm wondering from your response, Amy, whether that maybe you tried bullet points over there.
I did try bullet points and
Yeah, you'd have to
also,
drop the point size to buy the space,
yeah,
maybe
But-
just 1 point.
But I think the big boxes are effectively giant bullets.
they are. It says the same thing, just in, this is like further explanation.
Yeah, anyway, just a thought.
Yeah.
One other thing I realized that would buy a little bit more space for your bubbling expansion.
My bubbling
Again, your
expansion.
bubbling expansion,
Oh,
the
my
things we
bubble-
say sometimes.
Didn't know what
I
that
think
meant.
on the second page where you have the plan, I think that you could lose the illegible Gale draft, sideways, athletic, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think it's irrelevant to the point you're trying to make, and it's also completely illegible. And the bulk of this is what the layout looks like. So if you were to lose the Gale head, sidebar there, then your bubbling expansion would have more room.
Bubbling expansion. Got it.
We just might have to put credit on there.
Yeah, but you could do that horizontally, like,
Yeah, well, I'm just saying like
Underneath.
somewhere on the
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
like,
totally.
to-
Yeah, totally.
Underneath it,
Yep.
you could,
Okay,
right.
Just doing it like
Um,
here, because you have all this white space here.
I know what you're saying.
Maybe you could even move the box there. You know what Amy's like, why aren't we doing this now? No more people.
I'm having
Um,
flashbacks.
Okay, so do we feel like we're ready to craft a motion?
Yes, should I be making this motion, or should someone else, given
You
that
can
I'll
make
be
a motion,
editing?
yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the town meeting flyer as posted in tonight's agenda with the edits discussed. And give Eric Tracy and Amy Kronberger permission to to approve a final document.
Second.
Second by Julie Campbell. We got there. That was excellent.
I should apologize to Bev for that.
Sorry, yeah.
I think it had all the components we need. All right, is there any further discussion? No. Okay, all those in favor? And it is unanimous of the 5 members present, and the motion passes. And so, yeah, so thank you, Amy, for your work on that, and thank you, Eric. And the two of you will just
We'll see Amy.
We'll get it done.
get it done.
We'll see Amy, yeah.
Thank you all for your feedback.
Thank you.
Feedback is a gift.
All right, moving right along. Next, the school committee retreat discussion. It truly is not really much of, or I'm not looking for much of a discussion, except that I want to get it on your radar. And I'm glad to say I don't want to put her out too much, but the Francesca Connors, who is on the going to be on the ballot, is in the audience. So it's good for you to take out a pencil, because what I'm going to say is that after the election, in the summer at some point, we typically have a retreat. And the only thing I really want to discuss right now is potential just penciling in of a date and just get a feel from the committee on whether, that's sort of something that makes sense or not. So I have a date that Eric and I discussed, but this is not the only date, but I throwing out there August 5th, which is a Saturday. Gonna see if just off the top of your head, anyone has anything to say about that. Certainly don't have to decide it right now, but I just wanted to put that out there. And sometimes these things work, where people just,
Yeah, that works for me.
That works for me right now. Oh, I gotta see when my kids' camp is. I don't have my
Yeah.
kids' camp dates.
no,
Yeah, it feels so far away.
it's very far away. And
No, we already have the entire camp summer planned. 'Cause
Oh,
you
I
have
know.
to do it in like January.
Yeah, it's
But I didn't put them on my calendar. So that might be the weekend I'm driving her to camp, but I just don't know.
Okay.
But I
guess
don't
what I'm
think
really-
so.
yeah,
I feel
mean,
like it's
if
the
people are
12th.
generally feeling like that might make sense. One of the
Let's pencil it.
Well,
in.
and one of the good things about that I've learned in my short time is one of the things that never is an open meeting law violation is that we can have all kinds of scheduling discussions over email. So if August 5th seems like a sort of a viable date,
I think so. I think it's good.
then we can sort of bring that out over email. But if people here just said that's absolutely not going to work, then I would go back to the drawing board. David, do you have thoughts on August 5th?
Yeah, no, August 5th works for me.
Okay, all right, so I will put that out as a potential email and let people really look at their calendars, and
Put a hold
and
on
I will send that to people that are highly likely to be on the committee after April 8th as well, so that we can just kind of plan for that. So, and that would be a daytime, Saturday daytime retreat. Great. I'll get that out to you guys. Unless anybody has anything on that, I think we're ready to talk about an update from you, Eric, on the athletic facilities.
Yes, I put this on the agenda once again, just to kind of keep everybody in the loop of things that are happening in the town side, specific to funding. If you go back to the flyer, you notice that the Hamilton Patent Homestead monies have been removed from the project. The history of that is many years ago, there was a town meeting, there was $500,000 set aside specifically for fields. For Hamilton. Hamilton put that into an account until whenever this Fields project came to life. It was one of the things that we tried to pursue as we looked for offsets to the total cost. The requirement to loosen up the money, to release the money, was that Wenham had to match specific to the assessment match, so the 2/3, 1/3. So basically, we all thought it was still $500,000, and said to Wenham, you know, it's $250,000 to release it, which would have given us another $750,000 total for the project to offset it. Wenham just can't do it. They don't have the free cash to be able to do that, and felt like there was really no agreement ever made way back when. It was just kind of something, I guess, that was said, you know, that we would release it at this particular point in time and leave it at that. So what's happened now is with Wenham unable to match it, Hamilton is not releasing it, but they are, they intend to use the monies to offset their share of the costs. So the money right now is worth about $610,000. And the town of Hamilton has decided that they will use that money incrementally over time to offset their cost of whatever the assessment is for the Fields project. So, you know, it depends on how they decide to ultimately do it, but if they say, on year one, we're gonna put $100,000 towards our cost. On year two, blah, you know, all the way down the line, till the money's gone. So how they decide, I guess that's up to them, but I just wanted people to be aware that that happened, so that's why the numbers are $750,000 lighter than they were each of the previous presentations that I did. So that's just, I want that to be out there. As part of that, I also want people to be aware that in each of the towns, the Select Board and FinCom votes on the warrant articles individually. And this year, Hamilton, the Select Board has chosen to vote on the floor instead of voting in their public meeting like they usually would for a warrant article. So they're going to vote on the floor. The FinCom in Hamilton has voted 5-0 unfavorable action for the athletic fields project, citing a number of things like cost, and they keep reaching back to 2015 when there was an original push to phase it in over time. So they have a number of issues, mostly related to cost. If you read through what they've written in the warrant article when it comes out, you'll see that the bottom line is they feel like it's too expensive, given all the other things coming down the pipe between the town and the school department. Wenham Select Board has voted 3-0 to recommend it, and then FinCom in Wenham 4-1 to recommend favorable action. So that's how the two towns have handled the articles related to the debt exclusion for the turf field, the athletic field improvement project, athletic facilities improvement project. So it's just an update. I wanted everybody to be aware of how things were moving at the town level.
So what does the Hamilton FinCom suggest as an alternative, other than?
They actually talk about alternative. Back in 2015, when the project was about $7.5 million, I think, there was some discussion about phasing it in over a number of years, and they're reaching back to that, saying we should phase it in.
So they're not against in principle?
No, they say point blank they are not against. They understand the need for the project. They are concerned about the large amount of money all at once. The thing to keep in mind is we're currently looking at offsetting $5 million of that, so we're in a little bit better position. That still puts them at about $6.5–7 million overall over probably a 10-ish year period. We haven't really finalized that, but you generally can't take out a bond for longer than the life of whatever you're building. So turf fields are 10 to 12 years. So, but they are definitely very clear in what they've written that they understand the need for the fields, but they do raise concern about the actual monies involved.
How do they respond to your response to that, which is that it's going to cost millions more by phasing it?
Yeah, I haven't asked that question, but that would be my conversation on town meeting floor. I mean, this is again, it's just a conversation about simple finances. When you're going to stretch it out over time, we're seeing it now. We have a contingency built into the project because we know we're not going to start it for another year. It's going to be more expensive than it is right now. So we're trying to manage that with contingencies. And you know, if you bring it out over 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, you're starting to really build. Because what happens is you have to build in all the initial costs, like phasing. So bringing all this equipment on site, finding ways for them to keep the equipment in a particular place so they're not interrupting the rest of the day. So instead of doing that one time, you're doing that over and over and over time. So you end up paying consistently paying the same costs over and over and over for each phase. So even though, and if you've been on those fields, there's not a lot of room outside of the bounds of the fields to do a whole lot. Like you can't just suddenly drop in a road because there are wetlands on several sides of the project. So
Thank you.
Hannah?
I have a couple questions. On the Wenham side, is it that the CPC itself does not have sufficient funds, or is it they do have sufficient funds but don't want to? This is for the Wenham part of the patent match.
Two different things. The CPC has matched. So the CPC in Hamilton has agreed to $800,000.
I'm talking about the patent. You said the patent fund.
Yeah, that
That
would be
Wenham, so is it the town of Wenham that does not have sufficient?
correct.
Was there any conversation about them using any of their ARPA money or some other fund? I mean, was there a conversation about where they might come up with that money, or they just said we don't have
I
it?
don't believe you can use ARPA money for that.
Mm.
I think the conversation really circled around free cash. I mean, they're tight. They're, you know,
I don't think they have much of.
last I looked, it was, I think, $596,000 available free cash, and that, you know, take actually more than half that, because it's going to be over $250,000 if they match the 600. So there was a lot of discussion between the two towns. They went back and forth, and this is what they settled on. And Hamilton still has the availability of the money to offset the costs.
So my next question, which is related, is if for some reason between now and special town meeting in fall, if Wenham could determine or, you know, realize that they did have the funding, if that were to change, could we bring that back and put it on the warrant for special town meeting in October? Because it's the project, if we approve it, it's not like everything will be paid by October of this year. Could we try to come back again in the fall?
I don't know, honestly. I would suspect we could. It would be a conversation with the towns. I think realistically, the process was me writing a letter to the town of Wenham saying, you know, we're hoping you can match this so that we'll release the funds for the project, and then it went from there. So it's really a conversation between the two towns, and then I believe it has to go to town meeting only because I believe it was created at a town meeting initially. So I would suspect it would have to go back. And yes, you're right. The funding of the project. I mean, and if you're looking at the cost over time, we would, if everything goes well, you have about between $4 and $5 million to start the project, and then that pushes off the requirement of us to pull the bond, which also pushes off the due date of when they start paying.
Right. I mean,
the
it's not
bond.
like we're going to put a shovel in the ground on April 7th if this passes. So I guess my sort of
Year out, right.
right. So related to that, then, the Hamilton sort of spend down on that patent fund, are there any provisions that they would have to do it by a certain time? Is there any notion that we might get to the end and, I mean, would it be like an offset for them on the debt exclusion, or?
It would be an offset on the assessment. the
For
debt
Hamilton
assessment.
specifically.
Yeah, because remember, we assessed them not only for the school budget, but for
Yeah,
the
no, I know,
debt.
it's a separate set. So
Yeah.
would it be limited to the debt exclusion on the Hamilton side of the assessment over time?
Correct.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be basically if we, so for example, if we assess them 400,000 in year one,
Right, they could choose to
decide to
spend.
use 100,000 out of that and raise, raise revenues for the rest of it.
Right. Okay.
So I just wanted everybody to be aware of what's going on before we get to town meeting floor. And everybody has been pretty open and honest and upfront. Like, there's no kind of, it wasn't something that we weren't aware of. We knew these conversations were going on, and, again, it's really up to the towns to decide what to do and how to approach it. They can, they can actually pay their debt any way they want.
Right.
We're requesting the debt exclusion. If it gets approved, we end up holding the debt and assessing the towns, and then how they pay it is up to them.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you. All right. Looks like we are up to the E&D certification.
Off this, Vinny.
Oh, I get it.
Move.
Do they each have a motion sensor?
It was just me, because I walked.
Because you're visual. That's so interesting.
Oh, so if we just waved our arms around, then we would.
Could we have a note to the minutes that the Bucher multipurpose room has green lighting now and is not ever
Yes.
before? I feel like everyone who's all about climate change should be aware of it. We have green lighting in this room.
Excellent. That we have to be more
Awesome.
gesturing more, or we're going to be in the dark.
Other duties.
There's always improvements going on here.
I was a little worried, like, tell me about these new light bulbs that keep turning off. But they're just being green.
It's the secretary's job to run around the room.
Okay.
No, I like the idea of us all in motion, like this really, it's like, it's great.
It
I'll get
happened
one of those
in the
guys.
gym during a basketball game.
The lights
At
went
the
off.
high school, the lights all went off, so
Really
not
active
just here.
basketball game.
How is that possible
I
during a game?
I asked the same question.
Yeah,
Like,
it does seem like there would be motion going on.
It was evidently a slow game.
Okay, tonight I'm here to give you a brief presentation on our E&D, otherwise known as our excess and deficiency. So per the DOR definition, excess and deficiency is the amount by which cash, accounts receivable, and other assets exceed a regional school district's liabilities and reserves. In other words, or in my own words, it's the amount of money we have left over at the end of the fiscal year, or it's our profit or our surplus, or our loss and our deficit. So basically, it's the amount of money we have in our savings account at the end of the year as opposed to our checking account. It's the amount of money that we were able to put away at the end of the year that we did not spend. So two things I'm going to go over tonight is how it was calculated at the end of FY22, and then a general timeline on how E&D works. So in terms of how it's calculated, the very first thing you do, obviously, is look at your beginning balance. So on July 1 of 2021, the regional school district started with an E&D balance of $4.3 million. From there, we add a bunch of things and we subtract a bunch of things. So right out of the gate, the first thing we add to it is any unspent prior year encumbrances. So these are encumbrances in FY21 that we ended the year with and we thought we were going to spend during FY22. So just an example of this is in June, the Bucher School maybe ordered supplies, ordered pens and pencils and paper, We thought they were going to come in June, but they did not. So we opened a purchase order and rolled it over, anticipating that we were going to pay that bill in July the following fiscal year. But things happen, whether those supply orders were canceled, whether it was due to supply chain issues, the vendor couldn't give it to us, or we canceled the order. So we ultimately didn't spend that money that we anticipated we were going to. That happened in a bunch of different occurrences that added up to $102,000. So you take that pot of money that we thought we were going to spend and add it to our E&D account. Again, this is money that we anticipated we were going to spend but did not. The next big thing, as you've heard me talk about before, relates to our balanced budget. So our budget for FY22 after offsets was roughly $3.69 million. It has to be balanced. Like I've said before, you have to take in just as much revenue as you anticipate you're going to expend. So your revenues have to equal your expenses. So when you look at your E&D, it comes from both sides, your revenues and your expenses. So if you look at just the revenues alone, we anticipated we were going to take in $36.93 million during FY22, but we actually took in $37.23 million. This is excess of roughly $302,000. This mainly came from Chapter 70, where we received roughly $74,000 above our budget, and then Medicaid reimbursements, where we received roughly $200,000 above our budget. So again, this is revenues that we took in excess of what we budgeted. In total, that was $302,000. So you add that item to our overall E&D balance. The next section is expenses that came in under budget. So this is $36.93 million budget, where we only spent $34.08. So we underspent our budget by approximately $2.8 million. As you saw during my year-end presentation, this was mainly payroll. We had that list of nearly 15 positions that we couldn't hire all year, so we had leftover salary money as well as leftover health insurance due to those vacant positions. So overall, we came in roughly $2.8 million under budget, so that again gets added to E&D. Then you just have this small rounding issue. The main point of this is because I work with pennies, whereas the auditors and the DOR, they work with whole dollars. So when you look at a $40 million budget, it's made up of nearly 600 accounts. I'm using pennies on every single account, and they're rounding on every single account. So year to year, it does come up with a small variance. For FY22, it was approximately $17. So those are the items that get added into the E&D, but there are also two items that get subtracted. The very first one and the biggest is what we voted on February 10th of 2022 for E&D offset in our 23 budget. That was roughly $3.1 million. If you remember, this was mainly our OPEB funding that we contributed roughly $2 million to. We returned $770,000 back to the town, and then roughly $300,000 for extraordinary maintenance. So this is the amount of money that we put towards our overall budget to reduce the assessment to the town, again, approximately $3.1 million. The next one is around our grant deficits. So how the DOR looks at this is if the school district were to cease to exist on July 1, what would happen to all of our accounts? If you look at our accounts, our grant accounts are usually in a deficit all the time. That's because it's on a reimbursable basis. So we go out and spend the money. After we spend it, we go and seek reimbursement. So most of the time, all the grant accounts are in a deficit until you get your money back. So the DOR looks at it as if we cease to exist on July 1, there's no way for us to take in that money, therefore we would have to bail out these grant accounts. So when the DOR looks at it, they say we can't certify any amount because you would need that money to fund your deficit accounts. So even though we receive that money in July or August, the DOR still takes it off of their certification. So nonetheless, you take in our beginning balance, add in everything I just mentioned, and subtract everything out. You're left with a final balance of $4.4 million. This is what the DOR certifies as of June 30th. But today is March, so a lot of things have happened since June to today. The biggest thing is the vote that you took on February 9th, 2023 to fund our FY24 budget. This was, again, the amount that we talked a little bit about earlier, the $1.7 million in the capital stabilization transfer, a few capital items related to the high school theater lighting project, the Bucher Auditorium, and the Smartboard replacement project across the district. So again, the committee voted to use a chunk of this E&D to fund our FY24 budget, so that also gets removed from our E&D as of today. So on June 30th, again, it was $4.4 million, but we subsequently took another vote reducing it by $3 million. So as of today, our current balance is $1,265,837. So that's how you calculate our E&D. That was the activity that was added and subtracted to it during FY22, and then the final activity from FY23 and how you get to our balance today. So that was how you calculate it. There is a little quirkiness about E&D, and it's based on the availability of use. So I tried to develop this timeline similar to what I used last year. It is a little confusing, but I'm going to try to explain it as best I can. On June 30th of 2022, as I mentioned before, the district closes the year with $4.4 million. But as soon as you turn the page to July 1, the state looks at it as, we need this amount verified by both your internal auditors as well as the Department of Revenue. So even though I'm claiming we have $4.4 million, they want an outside firm to come in and audit the numbers and verify that what I'm reporting is what our ledger shows, and that it's backed up by proper receipts and disbursements, and that it equals the money we have at the bank. Until we do that, it's almost a blackout window. They don't let you use the money until somebody else comes in and verify that it actually exists. So if something were to happen in July and we needed to access this money, we cannot, because it hasn't been verified by the auditors and it hasn't been certified by the DOR. So from roughly July to October 1st, Powers & Sullivan comes in, our audit firm, and audits our financial statements and goes through our books and verifies that that money that I claim is there is actually there. They do that for about 3 months until October, when they finish their financial statement audit and give us the report. At that point, it's considered, and then from October 1 to October 30th, I work with Powers & Sullivan and the DOR to submit all the paperwork for it to be certified. There is a deadline of October 30th to submit your E&D to the state. Then on November 1st, it's considered audited, but still not certified. So the auditors came in and verified the money's there. I submitted it to the state, and now the state goes through their review. That usually takes around 3 months, give or take a couple weeks. So from November 1st to approximately February 1st, it sits with the state until they go through the numbers. When February 1st comes, that's when the state actually certifies our E&D and says, yes, we agree, that's what your numbers show. We agree the auditors have verified it, and it's supported by the activity on the ledger. At that point, it's available for use. The school committee could then go in and vote to use this money. Depending how we use it, it does have to go to town hall for approval. The way you have used it in the past is to reduce the future budgets. So that goes through the budget process and then goes to town meeting for a vote. That's how it's voted upon for use by the taxpayers. So from roughly February 1st to February 28th, that's when we go through our final budget process. And again, in This year, we voted to use approximately $3.2 million of the $4.4 million to offset our '24 budget. And now, going forward, we have a balance again of roughly $1.2 million that could be used from approximately March 1st to June 30 until you start the cycle all over again. But if we were to use it again, that would require approval from Town Hall. So that's roughly the general E&D timeline and how you calculate it. I can take any questions or answer anything you need.
Thank you. Questions? Anna?
Thank you, Vinny, as always. I just want to understand how your calculation matches with the state DOR calculation. I feel like I just must be missing something.
Yep.
You've both ended up at the same number of 4438,283. But the state on their document, the second exhibit, started with a different number than you started with. So our beginning balance was 4375651. Theirs is 4529053. You've ended in the same spot, but you started someplace different. And mathematically, I'd love to know how that's possible.
That is the grant deficits from the prior year. So they add that back in. So if you look at the prior E&D certification, they removed last year's grant deficits. They add that back in, whereas I start off with what our ledger starts off with. So I could have used their number and then added back in the prior year grant deficits.
So in this scenario, it would be the fiscal year 20 grant deficits were added back into the DOR number, but you
Correct.
did not do that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I just want to make sure I was understanding it.
Yep. It's a good catch.
Thanks, Vinny.
You will be missed.
Anybody else? I know I said it last year, but I'm very appreciative, and I would like to put a vote in that timeline helps me, and the more times we see it, I feel like it's helpful. I don't know whether other people feel like that timeline is really helpful. I'm going to throw out there, though, that it seems like maybe Halloween is a magic day that nothing happens on.
Yeah, that's when it's due.
It's a holiday.
So, no, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yep.
All right. Okay. Next up, I think we have committee reports. I don't think capital finance, we have not met. I don't think we have anything, and we have some policy. Anna?
So exciting. This really is exciting. I think this is truly the end. So the last time we talked about this, we had our first reading of policy F. And we have the same exhibits here again today. Nobody had any substantive questions. I think the only thing that we really do need to decide is if we're going to accept the change that district council provided. So as you're looking at the agenda, it's the fifth exhibit is the one with the change. I think for the sake of Dorothy at the MASC, we should be very clear because she had prepared it prior to this recommendation from council. So I might suggest for Dana, this is a suggestion, that we either decide or not to decide to take FF, or if you want to do them all individually. There were no other changes to anything else. I think this is the only thing that's potentially worthy of conversation. But if we adopt FF, and then we could adopt all of the rest of them
Yeah.
with sort of the new FF in there. I don't know if that makes sense to people or not.
Yeah, so you're just proposing we start with a motion on FF and have a discussion, is that what you're saying?
I think so, because there's,
Yep.
there's
Sounds-
two versions of it, and I think we need to decide which one we want.
All right,
Okay, so we want to talk about FF
FF, yeah.
specifically first. Okay. I move that the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee approve policies section FF as linked in tonight's agenda.
Friendly amendment,
Friendly amendment?
Second.
you need to specify which version of FF.
I do, okay.
Well, because there's two.
Is there, what's the difference as far as like how to denote which one we're talking about?
So
Exhibit.
that's what I was saying. If you
The-
go to the fifth exhibit,
Yep.
it said there's some red line changes there,
Suggested change version.
right there, suggested changes. So we can either accept this version of FF, which has the changes from district council, or if you go into the second exhibit, There's another version of FF that did not have those changes because that was the last thing the policy looked at.
Oh, yeah.
And then council changed it.
I just wanted to get advice on how to denote which one is which in the motion.
Well, I don't want to tell you how to make your motions, but if I were making your motion, I might suggest that you be clear, you accept the second FF with the
Okay.
changes recommended by district council.
Okay.
It's just an
Can I
idea.
just start my motion over?
Sure, nobody's seconded it yet, so.
Thank you. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve policy section FF in the version with the red line and suggested language as linked in tonight's agenda.
Second.
Second by Anna Seizik. Okay, so so for clarity's sake, the one that we saw before, well, what
We actually saw-
what does policy have to say about this?
So we actually saw both of these at the last meeting.
Yeah.
When policy subcommittee met, we only had the version that has no red marking. And we approved it unanimously and thought nothing of it. And then Eric's finally got an opinion out of district council who suggested we change it to be this instead. So the reason we have to put two forward is that policy subcommittee actually never considered this version. But, based on, based on the recommendation of council, we have to decide which version we want. So either we take the first version that the committee looked at because we didn't have this, or we take the second one after council has opined.
Right, and it's all coming back to me now, that the key is that the original, and it's redlined right there, you can still see it, that it says that a naming decision would come before the school committee at the next available school committee meeting, right? And that was part of the problem, or part of the concern, right? Is that,
Yes.
that's promising a lot, right? That we're gonna consider naming rights at the immediately following.
So what Amy has motioned and I have seconded is that we switch the non-red line version of FF for this one instead. So if we were to vote yes on that motion, we would
Yeah.
make this the new FF.
And this is the recommendation of our council.
Correct.
Is there anybody have questions? All right, we ready to vote?
Sure.
Yeah, all right, so everyone's clear that that would be approving this redlined policy FF,
Mhm.
if you were to vote yes on that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 5 members present, and the motion passes.
Okay, so now if we go back to the second exhibit, we have the rest of the F section, which is only 3 other policies. We have FA, facility development goals, FCB, retirement of facilities. We can pass over the FF because we just adopted a different FF, and then we end with FFA. And those would be the rest of the F section policies, which have not changed since last time policy subcommittee looked at them.
I think if you want to give us a stab at what that motion would be without the FF
I
in there.
I
Yeah.
guess just
Yep.
listing the other Fs.
Yep.
Okay. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee adopt policies FA, FCB, FFA as linked in tonight's agenda.
Second.
Second by Anna Seizik. All right, are there questions? And there have been no changes since the last time we saw these, correct?
Correct.
All right. Looks like we're ready to vote?
Yeah.
All right. All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 5 members present, and the motion passes.
Woohoo!
Anna, would you like to tell us what this means?
Well, what this means, for those dying to know, is now the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee has completed in its entirety a systematic policy review of all, 300, 400, maybe 300, sometime between 300 and 400 policies that govern our operations. They are now all in alignment with state law, federal law, and best practices from the MASC. So what will happen next is I will write to Janelle and Dorothy. So for those who don't know, Dorothy Presser is our liaison at the MASC. She is sort of the guru of policy that helps us a lot. So I'm going to write to her with this change because Dorothy is also unaware of the new FF to tidy that up. And at the last meeting, we adopted the L section. And Eric, I think that those are the only ones that maybe Dorothy needs to send to Janelle. Janelle, I think, has everything else with all the other tiny little changes and typos and things. So this means that the policy subcommittee is now done until we want to start it again.
Oh, amazing.
Thanks, Anna.
What a legacy, though.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure, actually.
All right. Excellent. And I know Janelle is also working not only on getting them on there, but also that they're going to be in a more searchable and easier to access, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
For all of you who've ever tried to find the policy you're
Yeah.
looking for. So,
And in the right section.
in the right section. Excellent. All right, thank you. All right, negotiations, I don't think we have anything to report.
I thought there was a new union forming.
So there is, that is going on, but we haven't had any, they haven't reached out to, well, that's not true. You're right. They did reach
Yeah.
out, but we haven't gotten anything on the schedule yet.
Right, it's actually still at the state level.
Right.
so
Well, no, but we did get something from, it was just a heads
Chris.
up
I think you
from
all
Nick
received an
Rustino,
email
yeah,
just
from-
saying that
Right.
this was their intention, but they're still wrestling with the, the state level. There are a number of hoops they still have to go through. I think there's one more that they have to complete before, just so people understand the process. They would demand to bargain. They would send us a demand letter saying, we now have this group that has been approved by the state and we're demanding to bargain. We would answer that response and then set up at some point in time, negotiations, which in this case would be the construction and development of an entirely new agreement, because this would be a new group for our teachers' assistants. They don't have a contract or any affiliation with a union.
How many do we have?
57.
57?
57 that are accepted by the state. There are 59 that we employ. Two of them are substitutes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Right, and I'm glad that you said that because, right, we did receive an email that really was just a courtesy email from Nick Rustino, the head of the union, just keeping it, which I appreciate his professionalism and kind of just like, this is coming, be
Telegraph it,
prepared,
yeah.
but there was no actual action at this point, so.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. And now, superintendent's report?
I have a lot of stuff. There are some amazing things happening right now in the district, and I'll kick it off with I did a walkthrough this week with Dr. Best at the middle school and Jen Clifford, our teaching and learning director, and was able to see some amazing things going on. But one of the things I learned was that the 8th grade Mandarin students were taking a field trip to visit some of our senior citizens that only speak Mandarin.
Oh, how cool.
Oh.
So that was a fun experience for them, and I think, for us, I think what we're starting to do is build stronger connections with our senior citizens, and that's one of the focal points of some of the things that you'll see coming down the road between the schools and the senior citizens. So I think that was a fun event for everybody, always a good opportunity to share and learn, and for our 8th graders, an immersion experience, because from what I know, none of them spoke English. So it was a full immersion experience. So that was fun. And then theater workshop, if you haven't heard, made it through round 1 and are heading to round 2 for the one-act play, 13 Ways to Screw Up Your College Interview. It was hilarious. If you didn't get a chance to see it, take a chance to see it, because it is it's less than an hour. It's 40. I think it was 44 minutes or something. It was a great show. Kids did a great job. Hilarious how many different ways they can portray, all these different interviews for college interviews, and they'll compete this weekend on Saturday at 10:30 at Westford Academy, and this is round 2. I believe if they get forwarded again at this level, then they'll go to the state level, which is a big deal. The state competitions in Boston, and quite a lot of fun for the kids. I'm going to shift to bigger notes here that I have. National History Day, we had all kinds of winners at the National History Day. We had a first place documentary group, first place group performance, third place group website, third place individual website, third place individual exhibit, honorable mentions for individual documentary, a group exhibit, and then individual website. I think it's a testament to the History Day, which is kind of went away a little bit during COVID and is now kind of reinvigorated. I was fortunate to be a judge this year for the local event, and always amazed at what kids come up with and the things that they develop and create to show their understanding of things that happen in history and timelines and events. So congratulations to all the winners. And also DECA, as we know, went out this past weekend to the States. 100 students went to Boston with a whole bunch of brave chaperones. Spent a couple of nights in Boston. 14 students qualified for the International Career Development in Orlando. And we had a number of IDC qualifiers, but also some state top finalists. We had 12 of them, which is a big deal for DECA. I had to laugh a little bit. Vinny's hiring he's trying to hire an accountant right now, and I noticed a comprehensive exam recognition medallion went to a student who is for the accounting application series. We might want to call him, see if we can get him in there. But I think the funniest thing was on Friday, I got a text from a former employee in another district who said, I don't know what's going on, but Hamilton's killing it at DECA. So for me and everybody in Hamilton, the things like the History Day where our kids travel and they compete and they really get to show off those skills. We talk a lot about what skills the kids take from school and use in life, and this is a great example. Both of these events are great examples of how those things work. And then the final thing I have to report on, Deb Clapp's forensics group, probably actually anatomy group, but there were a number of her kids that went to Boston Med Flight, which was, I saw it only on Twitter, and I was totally engrossed in the pictures, and they learned about what MedFlight does, how they respond, what types of vehicles they use, what types of things they do in their response. So great event for a whole bunch of students who were able to go on that field trip. And again, part of that experiential learning that we see for our classes and our kids that I think give them, I think that it just, in my opinion, gives them a heads up when they go off to college and some of the things they've seen, some of the things they've experienced. It really gives them an opportunity to say, hey, I might want to do this, or not for me. So I think it's important, and I really appreciate the time that our teachers take. This is time to plan, time to set up. The med flight was up against the Wednesday possibility of cancellation, so dealing with that angst and anxiety, I really appreciate the work that all of our teachers do outside of the classroom, and we often forget about that. They generally are volunteering their time to take kids to these competitions, to travel with kids, and to be part of these events. And whether they're in-state, out-of-state, or out of the country, I think it's an important thing to remember. Our teachers are always really looking for ways to give our kids opportunities, so I thank them as well. So congratulations to all the local winners here. It's exciting. We look forward to more.
Thank you.
Oh, I know tonight there's a civics bee at the middle
Yeah.
school.
I know, yeah.
Witness here who won. I haven't heard yet.
Which is, I don't know if you've ever gotten the chance to go to that. It's actually a really fun event. It hasn't happened in a couple of years.
Right.
But yeah, I was actually a little sad that there was a conflict on the civics bee, because it's a lot of fun. Anna?
I have a question, Eric. Someone reached out to me because they saw it posted on School Spring, and it caused a little bit of panic among some people. Can you address the posting of the assistant principal position at Miles River that happened on Monday?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of
So-
a big deal. People called me in a panic, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I thought our assistant principal position was settled.
Yeah.
And lo, there it is. I was just verifying it. Can you tell us what's going on?
Sure. The assistant principal position at the middle school, we hired an interim this year, Kirsten Losi, who, if you remember, she was also the interim last year at the high school. So we figured if she could handle the high school, no, I'm just, we talked a lot about who would fit with Dr. Best coming in as somebody new. We thought about, we did go through a hiring process, could not agree on an assistant. Talked with Kirsten, asked her if she would be interested. She agreed, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it, but I think the time commitment for her is beyond what she can continue to do. She's got all kinds of other things, kind of irons in the fire. So Kirsten has given her notice, early, so that we could get the hiring process started early. Because as you know, hiring for any position right now is still difficult. So. Yeah, and we really thank Kirsten for stepping up 2 years in a row, both as the high school assistant and the middle school assistant. Very different jobs, but everybody I talked to, she's done a great job, and teachers really connected with her, and she was able to learn a lot about middle school. She'll go back to being a curriculum leader for the fine arts department, and she'll still be impacting both schools, so we get the best of both worlds now.
Okay, but that posting is legitimate.
It
and
is
if
legitimate,
people,
yep.
Okay, that's good clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
We gave her the option, if she wanted to keep the position, to stay full-time. She thought about it for a while, and then, agreed that she would want to let us know earlier rather than later. So, it's unfortunate to see her go, but we're glad we still have her, as, kind of in both buildings, so.
I have a question, unrelated to that. I noticed when I came to sign the warrants and drove the exit driveway at Buca here, it had a huge amount of pooled water and a bad hidden pothole. And I just wondered whether that was on the radar to do something about it.
That's why I drive a Jeep, to get in and out of here.
It is like a.
It is something that
Wise
we
decision.
continue to work with the towns with. It's a fairly sizable project. It's something that is probably going to require engineering and architectural,
Oh, really?
because we're not sure where to send the water. It just happens to be a central location that's lower than everywhere else, so it pools there. It's some places over a foot probably. We also get the benefit of a couple of the neighbors, their
runoff.
their pipes that come out of their cellars are also draining right there. And the drain that's there is a limited, I think it's a cistern, so once it fills, that's it. It doesn't, until it slowly drains away, the water stays there. So we have asked Tom to try to see if we can get some options on the table. He feels like it may be a $250,000 or more project.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, just because we have to figure out where to send the water legally. We can't just pump it into somebody else's property, so it's
I don't know, it's fair enough.
yeah. So it's
Tit for
really
tat,
working
sort of.
with the town and probably having an engineering group come in and do some site work to figure out what makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Eric? All right. I don't have much on the chair's report, except I do want to make sure everyone is clear. We do not have a meeting on March 30th. That was probably on your schedule as an as-needed meeting, or if-needed meeting. You can erase that. We are not going to have a meeting. That, I do want to make you aware that it is a weird, long stretch now without a meeting, and that's sort of why we did it at the beginning, because it sort of seemed like, well, that puts three meetings in March, but on the other hand, if we don't do that, then there's this big gap. So this will be in other words, we're going to have 2 weeks, and then we're going to have town meeting, and then we're going to have election, and then we have another week, and then we have a meeting. So it's a long time until, I don't know.
It also, there was an issue, if we kept the current cycle, there was an issue with school vacation.
Right,
As well, so
it just,
we straddled school vacation and moved it so that we
Thank
could
you
make
for
it all work.
So when's the next meeting is post-election? is it?
13th.
the 13th.
The 13th?
Right, so the election is on, so April 1st is the town meeting, then April 6th are the town elections, and then on the 13th, is our first meeting after election. And at that meeting, we would have new members, and we would reconstitute the committee at that meeting. So that would be it.
Cool.
But again, feels like a really long time from now. So.
It'd be like an old time.
But fortunately, we'll see all of you at town meetings.
Yes.
So
April
don't
1st.
worry, we'll be together before then. All right, I don't think I have, do I have anything else?
No.
I don't think so. Okay. All right, how about topics for future meetings? Anyone?
I do need to give a student activities update. I just don't know if it's the next one or the one after.
Okay, but
I
it,
just need to get the data.
okay,
I'm hoping for the next meeting, though.
okay. Again, it's a long time from now, so it might.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, I think
Yeah.
I should be
We
fine.
should be able to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, nothing else? I would take a motion.
I move we adjourn at 8:30 PM.
Second.
Motion by Anna and second by David Frankel.
Always like
All those in favor? And it is unanimous, and we are adjourned. Anyway.
Okay.
Excellent, you guys.